So let's begin. I'll just introduce myself to start off with. My name is Christopher McKenzie. I am one of the pre-sales product specialists here at Financials for Office 365. I've been conducting demonstrations of this product for the past year, and in that time I've been able to see a quite in-depth perspective and gained that sort of point of view that what people want to know, what people want within the system. So that's why we're starting off the lunch and learns with inventory management. While we do mention that we do offer so many different pieces of functionality, service management, project management, as well as manufacturing, we do sometimes forget about one of the essential identifiers that separates us from the competition, and that is our inventory management. So let's begin. Now, you all are aware with the Office 365 suite, there's different ways you can access, there's different ways you can view and enter information. So today, we're going to be introducing you to the inventory management within the new software business Office 365 Financials. So let's begin with the agenda today. So you may have received the agenda through the invitation, but if you haven't, we'll just have a quick recap on what it is. As we are going to go through a discussion, and then we're going to give you a quick look at the layout of Financials for Office 365, and then touch into the real gritty-ditty details. Inventory aspects such as different contexts that we can account for inventory within your system. Of course, we're going to touch on a very important factor there, the inventory availability. This is one of the main features that makes it very powerful within the software. Being able to see the availability of your inventory, even the components of your items, if you do have a bill of materials. Then of course there's the added features, the extra pieces of functionality on inventory management that we have within the system. This is called master data details. We'll go over these in brief description, give you an idea of the different levels of detail we can account for your inventory. Then of course, one of the main features is the requisition of your inventory, the replenishment. So we're going to hop into a feature that if you've been in a demo with me, you will probably know of, the requisition worksheet. I very much like to market that out because it's a very powerful piece of functionality. We'll hop in there and show you how it can actually suggest, based off the minimums and maximums you have in your warehouses, or even virtual warehouses, even based off the sales orders that you've committed inventory to, we can generate a suggestion for purchase orders to fulfill the requirements that we have there. And lastly, then of course, there's the physical inventory aspect. This is always important. This is about us taking stock takes and how easy it can be just to account for the inventory in that sense. I'll give you a quick look at the physical inventory journal there. And then of course, we want to finish it up with a nice Q&A. We'll try and keep it as clean, cut and dry as possible, and make sure that everyone is able to have a say. Just remember though, everyone, because we only have 15 minutes for questions, please keep them on topic. And if you don't have time for them, we'll try and email us, as well as throughout the demonstration, feel free to add questions through the message board. As I have got our partner manager here, Alvin, here with me, he'll be able to tell me the specific questions that we can address in the Q&A section. Okay, so let's begin. What I'm going to do now is hop into what we call the web experience for Financials for Office 365. To make sure that I'm showing you a generic version and no customization, this is all out of the box functionality, we're going to use a demo database where I haven't touched anything. So you're going to see all the stock standard functionality of Financials. As you can see, this is what we call the sales order processor role center. This is one of our demo instances, and what we have here is just a generic layout. As you might have heard it, Financials for Office 365 is a profile-based and user-based software. So it's made to suit your actual needs. As you can see within the layout here, we've got the usual sort of Microsoft Office 365, let's say, layout of a program. We've got the ribbon here with our actions, reports, as well as a dynamic navigation pane here. This allows us to see the different menus that are available to us, as well as list pages. But, of course, we're here talking about inventory management, so let's hop onto that. And throughout the demonstration, hopefully I am able to illustrate the ease of use in navigating through the software, as well as being able to show you essentially how easy it is to move through things like this whole program, Financials for Office 365. So let's begin in the inventory items list page. So what you're seeing here is essentially the item list page that you could have within the software available to you if you use inventory management. As you can see on the right hand side, we have what we call backed boxes. This is a dynamic way of seeing the information about your inventory without having to even go into the item cards. And you might see on the right, on the actual contents of this page, it is very similar layout to what we might call as an Excel spreadsheet. As with every single list page within Financials for Office 365, we can actually export it out to Excel. But we do have the added functionality being able to navigate through pages like this the same way as you would within an Excel spreadsheet. So let's give a little bit of an illustration to that. Naturally, one of the hardest factors that I've come across for inventory management is navigating through your item list page. People have massive items list pages that go on for days upon days. And the main problem is being able to find that specific item you want to address. Naturally, we have that functionality to filter down what we're seeing here. So you can filter down based on any one of these columns here, specific aspects such as, let's say, a cost range. You filter down just to the actual items within that cost range. As you can see, this is done quite easily and can be applied to any one of the columns that you see here. Naturally, we can apply freeze panes so that we want to keep that same information visible, no matter where we navigate to. But on top of that, you have the dynamic functionality to be able to choose the specific columns that are being illustrated here. I must apologize if I move through this program too quickly. It is quite fast how the program does generate these dialog boxes and these new pages, but that's just the way it works. I'll try and keep my speed as tame, as you might say, as possible. And just like that, we've added 3 new columns to the page we're viewing. Now, while we do have this added functionality to filter down on any specific aspect that we have here, any column, any piece of context, you do have the searching functionality as well in place now. So as well being able to apply filters to any one of these columns or multiple columns at the same time. We have this new feature which is the search box function. Before we used to be able to apply multiple filters down through here. But what we can do through this new feature is search to any aspect we want to based off any one of these columns here. So if I was to search for, say, an item in the 0 range that includes just 19. This will then take that information and apply it to the numbering system, as well as any other aspect, the column, unit price. It's just a way to easily straight away navigate. Now I haven't pressed enter, I've just left that there just so we can think about that. But of course, if we want to search something specific, say, based off a description, let's say chair. What it then does is it takes that information and looks in the descriptions, even the full descriptions, to see what we can find. So you can dynamically search through your inventory list pages with that ease of use. And of course, to remove that filter, all you have to do is press the X, and then it'll generate back to the same full list page you have, but it will keep your position so you haven't lost what you were searching for. As with every single list page, we have the ability to hide the navigation pane, back boxes, as well as the ribbon. This functionality is so that if you are on a small screen, as I am on a Surface right now, you can see as much as you want to be, and you can always keep the information you want to keep visible up and open. But let's move into the next aspect that we want to touch on today, and that is the item card, the details. Let's hop into, I guess, the first one. So we're now in an item card where we can see the different levels of description and information we can apply next to an item. I'm just now shuttering our fast tabs so we can see the specific information we want to see and then still have pieces of important information illustrated just in a line, just so we're always seeing the information that's relevant to us. Now, as you can see in the general and invoicing class tabs, we've got the different levels of description you can apply to this item to be filtered down by. Of course, the number to have that specific unique identifier applied against our item, as well as being able to incorporate groupings as well as the actual pricing and invoicing you want to apply to it. So any piece of item within the system can have first in, first out pricing applied to it, specific, average, or standard costing methods applied. As well as this, as you may see in the general fast tab, we have a dynamic inventory availability and occupation standard area on the right here. What this is giving us a drillable feature. So I have here the current amounts of inventory within the system for my bicycle sale. Let's click down on this, and right here I will be able to see essentially the items and the item ledger entries that have contributed to that amount. But of course, that's never enough, just being able to see the inventory within your system. We need to be able to see how much we have on sales orders, purchase orders, production orders. Now I can see the sales lines specifically filtered down so I can see the specific item and all its details. Of course, by going through the home, I can then even navigate to the actual document itself. So it's just another way that Financials offers that ease of use in navigating through the system, trying to make the entire software nice and smooth. So let's pop back to the item card. Of course, the next aspect of inventory management that is very important is the replenishment and the planning you apply against your items. Now, replenishment is how we automatically apply that we are going to constantly have this item available to us. Now, that could be through production, that could be through purchase, and of course, if your item is a component or it is an item with a bill of materials, it can be assembly. Now, Financials can incorporate, of course, the planning aspect within this. So we have lead time calculation, giving us that extra amount of accounting into this security and making sure that we're going to have this item on time for our customers. You can apply specific vendors against an item if it is purchased, and even include that vendor's item number, their unique identifier from their system into our system. And of course, in production, you can apply specific policies if it's a made to stock or a made to order, as well as assembly where it can be assembled to stock or assembled to order. In planning, we can incorporate basically how we can keep it within our warehouses. So our reordering policy, which is a very important factor here. This could be if we're having a maximum quantity, a fixed reorder point, order by order, or lot by lot point. That's just to say, it's different ways we have it brought back into the system. Of course, there's an additional safety lead time, as you can see down here, as well as safety stock levels. What we've also got is the ability to make sure that we've got the specific amounts within our warehouses and that suggestion that I was talking about, which we'll touch again on in the inventory requisition worksheet. So you could have it that there's a maximum amount, a reordering point, or even just a reorder quantity applied within the software. Now, of course, when operating with inventory management, there's always the aspect of bringing it overseas. So we can incorporate tariff numbers as well as the net and gross weight of the item, as well as the country origin code. So this is a way that we can apply that extra level of accounting when you're operating overseas borders. Now, this is a very important one that I always like talking about, and this is item tracking. So with the inventory management we have in the system, we can apply serial or lot number tracking against that item. This could be just as a generic serial number if you want to make sure that the warranty of this item is kept nice and safe and that you can account for its movement, or a lot number if you want to keep batch and group tracking for this item. I have found that this next field here, the expiration calculation, It's very important if you're doing inventory management and the items have a scrap perspective. Let's say if they're just food and they have a specific date they have to be sold by. You can actually apply that expiration calculation within the system. The last fast tab that we have here is warehousing, and this is taking into account the different areas of coding that we can apply to this item within our warehousing. But we won't touch on that today. That's more in the warehousing lunch and learn, which we'll get around to later. Now, with every single document, page, and item, customer, or vendor that you'll see within Financials for Office 365, we can apply document links so that we link specific, let's say, orders or approvals against this actual item in this instance, or we could just have a notification applied to it, just so that we're notifying someone about a specific instance or occurrence with this item, customer, or vendor. Now, while I've moved through these fast tabs, you might have noticed that there is the option to show more fields. So we have 3 different ways that we can illustrate information about this item, just by having them pop up in the fast tab, having them deprioritized so that they don't show up straight away because it's not something we use every day, as well as being able to have them as prioritized information that automatically applies when we drop down this fast tab. So those are the different levels of context that we can apply to these items in inventory management: general and invoicing, replenishment and planning, foreign trade, item tracking, and warehousing. So let's move to a very important factor about item management, and that is the availability of your inventory. For that, let's just hit navigate, go to availability. So item availability within the system goes even further than just the functionality that you see here in the general files tab. We can view the item availability by every single one of these options. So let's have a little quick look at what each of these options is. Item availability by event is illustrating the item availability by the transactions that have occurred. You get a little bit of detail applied, as well as being able to see the specific dates, the item movements, of course being able to then drill down on these actual transactions. But if that's not enough for you, we've got an added piece of functionality called item availability by period. This is very beneficial if you want to take a periodic look at the inventory movement within the system. So within here we could see that, yeah, we have a projected available amount based on a specific day period. We can apply this and expand it. This is now changing it from a day-to-day approach all the way up to a month approach. And you can view it as a net change, of course, or a balance of date, giving you that item availability that you need to understand in the management and accounting for where your item has been. Now, let's look at the item availability by variance. This is a nice piece of functionality where I get to show off something that people really do like utilizing. So I'm guessing right now you're asking yourself, what is a variant, Christopher? Well, sometimes I don't know either because I am very good at hopping around. So let's just do this. All you have to do is hit that question mark and you can straight away see a specific page made out to give us information about what we're seeing. This will happen throughout the entire program, and you'll be able to see specific information that you're viewing right there and then. So it doesn't generate just a generic, let's say, page that tries to help you in any given way. So what did we learn here? Item availability by variance. A variant is essentially a different specifier for an item specific to a location or specific to, let's say, any aspect. Just you trying to separate it, say. So if we have a bicycle that has variance, a variant could be, say, that bicycle in location B compared to that bicycle in location A. If I want to sell it differently and have a different price because it's in Australia, or if it's in New Zealand or the Philippines, we can apply that through variance. And an added level piece of functionality is that we can apply this detail with SKUs. Now, everyone talks about SKUs differently. Stock keeping units within Financials for Office 365 is actually specifying based off those details that I've just specified, the variance. So that applies to replenishment, and I'll touch on that just after the availability. The next one you see here is item availability by location. This is very important if you have multiple items in different locations and you want to see how much you have in, let's say, warehouse A, B, C. But let's go to that next step further. Instead of viewing the item availability by location, let's just view all our items by location. I got the option to see the items that are still moving in between transits. Let's just hit Show Matrix and have a look at what we want to see. As you may know, if you've interacted with a demo database or financials for Office 365, you're given 5 different warehouses: blue, green, red, silver, and white. Within financials for Office 365, we can account for the item availability and the items that are in those locations straight here with live data being shown. So this isn't taken, let's say, at the end of the day. I can see the item availability from those different locations the moment I click this function. If there was a sale to be made with an item, it was changed generically straight away. Just another area that financials for Office 365 has that more dynamic visibility of our item management. Now this one, item availability by bill of materials. As you might have noticed, this replenishment here is production, so we can't actually view the item availability by bill of materials. So let's hop to another one that is got bill of materials. As you can see, I don't even have to hop into the item card to do this. What this allows me to do is to view the item availability of the components for my inventory. As you can see here, you can have multiple levels of bill of materials applied to your item management. This is accounting for when they're next available, the units of measure they might have applied to them instead of just pieces, packs, crates, anything, and how much each one of these counts into the parent item. Now, one thing you might be asking yourself, Christopher, how many levels of a bill of materials can financials for Office 365 have? Truth be told, it gets up to about 50, and I still haven't come across a prospect, partner, or opportunity that needs more than that. The largest I've ever got to is 7. What we also have applied here is the functionality to see when it's next needed by. This is very important in regards to the components for bill of materials. If you have production, assembly management within your warehousing, you can see all that information here. If that's not enough for you, you can always report on it. Get the inventory management to show that item availability. Or send it out to PDF, Word, or Excel. Then, of course, dispense it to the people that need to know it. One thing you might be asking though, while this is all happening, Christopher, what is item availability by timeline? Isn't that exactly what you've just shown us? Item availability by timeline is just a more illustrative, just a bigger illustration of the item movements. But since we've only got an hour today, let's move on to the next aspect, inventory master data details. And while I was running, look, there's our report. I now know that I have 152 components that I can make. Very good. Okay, master data details. Now what is this? This is the functionality within financials for Office 365 that gives your inventory management its robustness, that real big punch. Now let's say for an item you want to incorporate various units of measure. That might be how many you might have in a pallet. We can incorporate that in the system. So it could be you have packets of the item, you have pieces, you have pallets, boxes. Even if you want to incorporate the unit of measure by, let's say, the weight, the size, incorporate all that in the system here. Thanks to our help page, we already know what a variant is. As you know, dimensions are a tagging piece of functionality that we'll talk about more in depth within the financial management lunch and learn. So this one right here, substitutions. What this allows you to do is to essentially substitute an item if this item we're in right now isn't available. So before we were in the touring bicycle, if a person is unavailable to get a touring bicycle, by having this bicycle item card here as a substitution, we get a suggestion, a pop-up, telling us, Christopher, this one's here, you can maybe throw it in. Great, let's suggest it to the customer. Now, cross-references. This is a very broad term, so what does it mean, Chris? What this gives you the functionality to have is a specific number applied for a customer, vendor, but also it allows you to have a numbering system for barcodes. Now, if you have an add-in with Financials for Office 365 to have barcode reading, this is where all that information would pull. As you can see, we can incorporate different variant codes and different units of measure, and still have the functionality to say, okay, that barcode was last season, I don't want to use it anymore. Just that one click of that box there and it's discontinued. Naturally, even though we have all these different ways to account for the detail of an item, some people, it's not enough. So what do we offer them? Apart from having the functionality to add in documentation, notifications on it as well, extended text lists. This is saying, so, okay, you have a description of it, let's provide that in any specific language you might want to have. What this also applies is that we can have it planned out. So while we have a starting date, and ending date for this extended text, we can plan ahead, have it automatically apply. And of course, if you're like me, I'm a visual person, we can apply pictures that can be incorporated within the system. Just like that, you can have a picture of your item. And of course, identifiers. Now, identifiers are just a basic way to illustrate, I guess, where that item is. Oh, you want a specific tag against it? Let's view that. Could be a specific variant code applied to it. It's just that level to have an extra code that you didn't have before. If you don't use any of the options we've gone through, add it into the system. Those are the various ways that you have master data, extra information applied to your inventory management. So, what's next? Inventory or requisition. So now I bet you're asking, Christopher, what is that? Let's have a look. Right here in the requisition worksheet. Now, right straight away from here, we can view the item tracking lines as well as the item availability we've been talking about all this time. What this gives us the functionality to do within this worksheet is to calculate based off those minimums and maximums we saw in the planning fast tab and the sales orders we saw based off earlier. The ability to just drag in that information straight away and produce suggestions. Right now, I've set it so there's a specific time period for it, starting date and ending date. This month, last year, so I have demo data. You can apply forecasts against this, but that gets more into financial management, and that's not till next week. Can specify specifics as well, even as we go through here. So I can choose a specific item I want to replenish, specific description, let's say, as well as specify specific locations or any one of these options here. Let's just go for broke. Let's click OK. And what this will do, take all that information and bring it up. There we go. Right there we see that that item and its variant code is empty. So I need to address that. We have a variant code that isn't in the stock keeping unit. What might that be, Christopher, you ask? Let's talk about it. As you can see here, we've generated a good quantity of purchase orders, all suggesting the amounts we need for specific locations, our silver and white locations. So what this leading to is the topic of stock keeping units. With this requisition worksheet, we can actually plan for not only the purchase, but also the transfer of items. So if your item, let's say, is in location silver, but you don't buy and send items straight from your purchaser to location silver, you buy them from white, the location warehouse white. So what we can do there is through the S stock keeping units, suggest that you do a purchase order to silver and to white, and then you do a transfer order to silver. So what that does is that all happens within the system. So you no longer have to say, okay, I got to do a purchase order and transfer order all manually. This can all be produced for you. Not only has this got the option to actually create purchase orders, but we've also got the added piece of functionality to modify the purchase orders we already have in place by changing their quantity, maybe even rescheduling it because nothing works out perfectly, or canceling it if we just don't feel like buying that anymore. You might have noticed in the ribbon up there that we have 2 extra options. The idea to prepare for drop shipments and special orders. This is an added piece of functionality that we'll address in purchase management. But in the crux of it, you can have items instead of sent to your warehouses, drop shipped. And what we can do right from here is then say, I want to account for that specifically. So you can then get it from the sales order. All we have to do now is carry out the message, and all these items then work out to be produced as purchase orders. But that's off topic. We're talking about inventory management. So, what's the next aspect that we've got on our agenda? We've gone through a lot. Next one's physical inventory counts. Where does this happen? In the physical inventory journal. So let's search for it. Just like that, we've got entire suggestion list here. Let's go with our physical inventory journal. Now what this enables us to do is our stock takes for the people that don't like the jargon. Now, the important piece of functionality that we have here is our calculating functionality. People when doing stock takes can take forever and it's a very long-winded process. From this, we can include items that are not items, so non-stock items, service items, all those sort of aspects. And we can include those items that are without transactions, so haven't been moving in and out. What this means, we can produce blind and open stock takes. But on top of that, people will say, oh, this produces a stock take for my entire database. That's way too broad. I can't use that, then slice and dice it to what I need. Of course you can. We can slice and dice the stock takes to any piece of information that you saw there in the actual item card. Specific to a bin, specific to a date filter, specific to a location, heck, even specific to a shelf. But this is a demo, and I need data, so let's do it for everything. So, what this will then produce us is our physical inventory journal populated with the items that I have within the entire system. Yet it happened that quick. What we have here now is the calculated quantities within the system. All I have to do now is to print this out into an Excel document, PDF, however I like to, and then let my men go around and pick something. Let's say that they find that there's only 10 of the item that we've been looking at today, the bicycle. Just by entering that in the system quickly, straight away it tells me that it's a negative adjustment, and I could post and everything would flow through. Right then we're seeing the difference in quantity, and that'll work through the entire system. You can have it made specific to a location, as we said, to a shelf, any one of these aspects. But seeing is believing. Let's go to print and produce this. As you can see, we can even incorporate the serial and lot numbers against the items we've seen. Make it as a PDF, Word, or Excel document. Then it'll produce down here. I'm now going to give this to my workers and they can find me the actual amounts. Now, as you can see, we included it as a blind stock take. Sometimes you might want to go for one with the calculated quantity so they know that's what it's supposed to be. Sometimes you don't. We have that functionality for both. Now, while you're seeing the items here and all those details, you might be thinking, oh, Christopher, I've got some detail. I don't want to hop out of the physical inventory journal to find out that detail about that specific item. What do I do? Well, that's another area where the ease of use and ease of navigation of financials for Office 365 really does kick in. All you have to do is hit card, and we're going to hop now into the specific item card that you got highlighted there. And that works for pretty much the entire aspect of the program. I haven't had to hop back into the navigation pane to go somewhere I want to look at viewing something. We've got that added functionality to search and layer these cards on top of each other. Even instead of having to hit the X, all I have to do is hit the navigation pane, slowly pull back all the cards that we've been viewing today. This will now save that physical inventory journal to make sure that I can view it later on, and you can have as many as you want. The only master data piece of information we haven't touched on there was translations, and this allows you to view in itself the translation to a different language. And of course, there's various different ways we can report for inventory management, specific to the inventory, the sales aspect, purchasing aspect, finance and costing aspect, as well as, if you do it, manufacturing. Now, working with this, you might say, oh, Christopher, it's really hard to change the costs and the prices of my items on a regular basis. We can do that through the sales pricing, but we'll touch on that in the sales management lunch and learn. The only left aspect, of course, is the actual item journal itself. Now, of course, you can allow this to be open to users. Allows them to essentially choose if there's just going to be, instead of a whole document, just a line. And we do this by making it as easy as possible. Just purchase, sales, positive and negative adjustment. Straight away, just by clicking that, I get the even description of the name that I just highlighted. Okay, very good. And that, in the crux of it, is just a quick overview through our lunch and learn of the inventory management aspect within financials for Office 365. So hopefully you've enjoyed the vision we've been able to show to you, possibly of the Microsoft empowered business. So what's the next stage? Let's have a bit of a Q&A. So hopefully everyone doesn't hop in at once, but does anyone have an on-topic question that they want to throw out right now? Go for it.
Yeah, I've got a quick question about when you create purchase orders, can you also, is there a step in there where you can send them out automatically as a, to the supplier?
So is that in the question to be able to send out a copy or to process it automatically?
Yeah, to process it automatically. Is there a way to enable an automation, for when you create those purchase orders to send them out to the specific suppliers, that you might have in your supplier list?
Yep. So what we can do there is we can straight away have it that before you actually post the document, that it will then ask for it to be attached to an email. What we do there, that's what we call the email attachment. It straight away attaches it, and you can set that send. That function is what we call a send function. You can send it to a contact that you have assigned for that vendor, or you can send it to a default contact that you have within that actual organization. Don't worry, if you just mention your name, I'll be able to email a specific walkdown of how we might be able to go about it. Alex, great.
So Sue has a question about physical method accounting instead of.
So I think the question is, can you run a physical method accounting instead of perpetual method of accounting? Is this in this? Hi Sue, so is this asking if you're wondering how we could essentially run a physical accounting software that works in your warehouse? So let's say you have a tablet and you do the actual closing and opening stock of sales. Yeah, opening, closing stock. No worries. I'll be able to produce an email straight to you that goes in depth about how we can provide that to you. It's a bit of a open question, so I'll try and answer that as best I can through the email. We've got another question from Alex. Frequently changing stock levels, is there an easy functionality to change and update them? Yep, so through that item journal that we saw there, you could do positive and negative adjustments quite frequently just by managing it. What we do there is just go back into the system and let's have a look. So through the item journal, you can account for it and do adjustments very frequently, very easily, just as we saw there. If you want to make it a stock standard, that this piece of information is entered, you would then save this as a standard journal. Changing the quantity might be a periodic aspect that you can do, and we can apply that through the reoccurring journals. We'll touch on the reoccurring journals in financial management, lunch and learn, but I'll also send an email to give you maybe a rundown of, let's say, how that process would work. Very good. It is important to note that within this demonstration, we try and touch on everything in a very brief sense. If you have a specific inventory case, let's say that your items are got different numbering systems and you want to account for that in a more succinct way, please feel free to email us and we'll then try and answer those questions with examples taken from my demo database, of course, and then provide them so that we can best answer the cases that you give us. Okay, we've got another question from Alex. Inventory in terms of assets. How about maintenance, service schedules, as well as replacement and depreciation? That's a very good question, Alex. So, inventory management, of course, we do keep that separate from fixed asset management. We will have a lunch and learn where we briefly discuss that, and I think we'll try and touch on that in the financial management lunch and learn next week. We'll have a quick moment where we discuss the inbuilt functionality within financials on fixed assets. Very good. And yes, Sue, that's also a very good question. I'll read it out there for everyone. Is there a special pricing matrix per customer, group, item, category, etc.? That's a very good question. We try and keep that one in the sales module and sale management, but you might have noticed there that there are different ways that you can categorize items. So not only do we have the way of grouping them in the item group, but we also have a hierarchy that you can apply to them. All these pieces of information, you can actually have an item category code, but think of it as a parent level of describing that item and grouping that item. And within that item category, you can have multiple product groups, just to group those items more succinctly and to apply more analysis and reporting in that regard. Special pricing matrix per customer, that is one of those. We do have specific prices and sales prices that we can apply, as well as being able to apply specific discounts on the items. We'll touch on that in the sales management lunch and learn.
And line item discounts, right?
Exactly, Al. That's very correct. Line item discounts. And can you schedule these price changes? Richard's just asked us that. That's a very good question. So, just for everyone's sake, let's hop in and have a look. What we've done now is hopped into the sales price for a specific item. Let's say the one we've been looking at. So, while we can apply a specific sales code, let's say if this item has a specific price for everyone right now, it would, by changing the discount amount and the unit price. We can make it customer or vendor specific just by applying their customer number here. Or of course, customer price group specific. Or if you're having a campaign, we can make it work that way. In regards to your question, can we schedule these price changes? That's a very good question, and yes, we can. Through utilizing the functionality that we saw earlier in the starting date and the ending date, you can actually plan ahead the item prices and the item sales prices that you have within your system. Now, these will automatically populate while you create documents such as sales invoices, purchase orders, and it works both sides, not just sales, also on the vendor side as well. We'll touch on that in the next demonstration as it automatically populates into a document. But it is important to note that it can have multiple different aspects that you apply to it. So you can have multiple sales prices based off the quantity. If you want to give them discounts, go for it. If it wants to be a cost plus aspect, I say go for it and have a discount amount, might as well. So hopefully the knowledge that you can do that functionality of the scheduling of price changes in there is available to you. Hopefully that makes it up. And as well as being able to do that through, as well as line discounts, we'll talk on that in the sales Lunch and Learn. And we'll talk about the ways that you can do specific volume discounts. That'll be very exciting. It is important to note that we do have a variety of reports that you can run for inventory management. You can see here. Naturally, you can run an inventory availability report. Anyone would be able to. But we can also set this specifically with the power of our filtering. So, while we have this wide range of inventory reports that we can apply within the system, what separates us is the fact that you can slice and dice the information within financials specific to your requirements. We can make it that you want to segment the report's reach by any one of these options here, as well as limit the totals that you're seeing to specific contexts such as a location, if they're from a specific department, specific drop shipment aspect, as well as if they're included in the production forecasts. And of course, if they have specific serial and lot numbers. You can do reports based off any one of these. Produce a preview and then send it out. Give you an illustration of every single column that we have here. Piece of information you apply to the system. Keep as many as you want automatically visible or separated. One that everyone does notice is the fact that you can have specific style codes and style descriptions, color codes and color descriptions. You have all that information pulled against a specific item. And of course, if you want to apply for a periodic separator of this item, you can say that it's the bicycle for the winter season, bicycle for the summer season. You can separate it based off all those different types of identifiers. Okay, guys, does anyone else want to ask a question? Oh, we have another question in from Sue. Stock sizes and colors. So yes, within the system, there is the functionality to incorporate the size of an item and the color of an item if you want it to be a separator, an identifier of that specific item. Now we can have it that they're separated by these, as you saw in the columns. So you can have specific items, each one of these sizes, each one of these colors, or you can simply have them as variants that we mentioned earlier, and stock keeping units. So you might say that you have a blue bicycle, a green bicycle. You can have them all pulled into the same item, or you can have them separated by the specific ones that we just showed. Sizes, colors, style, and season. So you can have them as separate items or pulled in together into the same item, really on just your business practices. Okay, we have another question from Sue in regards to separate bin locations within the same warehouse and consignment stock. Consignment stock's always been a tricky one, so I'll answer that after I answer the question about warehousing. So, warehousing, we have a specific lunch and learn based off that, but that is true. You can have the inventory separated by specific bins, specific zones within that actual warehouse itself, and we can account for even the bin replenishment of that inventory. We'll talk about all of that within the warehousing management, lunch and learn, but just so you know, yep, that functionality is there. Now consignment stock. I've given 5 demonstrations of consignment stock. Each one was interesting. The idea with a consignment stock is that we purchase a specific amount of an item and then we sell it, and then based off what we sold, it's how much we pay for it. Anyone is unaware about that. We do have the functionality that you can process it so that you purchased an item for no price, and then you can update it by processing that purchase order based off those prices. But that doesn't work within the system. Of course, that has to be manually taken because it's different every single time. The one area where we fall short within consignment stock is the reporting aspect. We do try and meet those requirements within an add-on for financials for Office 365, which is called Jet Express. Jet Express allows us to dynamically create invoices and reports into Excel and then generate them as BI report. But consignment stock's always been a tricky one. Well, it looks like we've got more than 3 people typing right now. Let's see what they got to ask us. Okay, so Joanne's asked us how to disassemble a finished good to create another item. So Joe, is that in regards to being able to disassemble an item based off its components, let's say it's bill of materials, and then produce it as a separate item, or just be able to have a process where you have an entry item, an input item, and have an output item. Is that what you're asking? That's a very good question. So within that case, we would have to have it as a dynamic assembly of that item. So I believe you are asking us if you would be able to disassemble that a finished good and then be able to create multiple items out of that. Yeah. So I'll send you an email that illustrates the assembly process, and we can also illustrate how the components level can be an input or an output. It's really based on your business practices. Always there's the need for a subjective context. It could be that this is part of your production process, so we'd use the manufacturing module. If it's just a light manufacturing, we'd use assembly orders for this inventory management aspect of the components and how they produce. Naturally, sometimes people have them coming in as components to build up to an item, and sometimes people have it that one item generates into multiple items. Try and incorporate all of that. So, Joanne, I'll try and send that to you, that information to you after this demonstration. Oops, sorry, webinar. I'm not in a demonstration right now. I'm so used to demos. Now, because we have an extra 2 minutes now after our webinar, it might be fun to touch on what we'll be talking about next week. If you guys are able to join us for our Lunch and Learn next week, we'll be talking about financial management. Now, within there, we'll be talking about different aspects such as dimensional analysis or just analysis that you run within the system. I'll be able to explain what a dimension is to you. We'll also try and run the actual financial reporting, give you a look at the different areas of functionality we have within the system that can produce and make your BI within the system more powerful. We'll also try and touch on AR, AP, as well as a little bit of fixed assets, budgeting within the system, forecasting, cash flow forecasting, and multi-currency. I know that sounds like a lot, but you know what? We'll try and do it. Okay, great, Alvin. Do we have any more questions through the messages?
At the moment. So we'll just call it a day. Thanks for everyone for coming, and we'll hopefully see you at the next Lunch and Learn.
Now, as you can see, we've been in the web experience for Financial Office 365. There is the Office 365 experience, which we'll touch on one day, as well as the tablet experience, which allows you to access financials through iPads, Surfaces, Android devices. You might be asking yourself, why is there a hole in the middle of that page, Chris? That's because coming up at the end of the year, there'll be another way that you can access financials for Office 365. And that's what we call phone experience. So hopefully that comes around soon, and hopefully we get to see that. No worries. Well, I hope you all enjoyed the Lunch and Learn today. I know I have. It's been our first one. I think it went without a hitch. What do you think, Alvin?
Yeah.
Great. So I hope today's been beneficial to you, so you can see the financial powers within inventory management that we offer through financials for Office 365. And hopefully you can illustrate it in the ways that it can benefit you, your business, and others. Thank you very much, and I hope you've enjoyed today.